Welcome back to the channel for part 3 of my top 150 NHL prospect rankings. I've been slacking on the consistency of these uploads, but hopefully I can maybe pick it up. But we'll get right into part 3 here. The top 100 prospects to enter the top 100. These guys are all really great prospects, as have been the prospects in the previous parts, but it's starting to get into some really great players, and the rankings are starting to get really tightly contested among some of these guys. So we'll jump right into it with player number 100, and that is Otto Stenberg of the St. Louis Blues. You may have heard of his younger brother Ivar Stenberg, one of the top prospects for the upcoming 2026 NHL draft. Otto Stenberg isn't quite as much of a high event player as his brother. He's a very, not low event, but a steady, reliable forward. He's going to be a good middle to bottom six centerman type. He plays a good, well-rounded game. Has got some good skill offensively for sure. But again, he's not as super high skilled. He's got a lot more fundamentals to his game. He just finished his first season in North America in the AHL with 17 points in 38 games for Springfield. He was a big piece on Sweden's junior team this past season with 8 points in 7 games there. So he does have a lot of offensive punch. He's got some good skill there, but he plays a very well-rounded, solid, steady game that will fit well into a third line, I'd imagine, in the future for the St. Louis Blues. At number 99, Tarik Parasak of the Washington Capitals, a player who was a bit of a reach at the time of the draft last year when he was taken 17th overall in that draft, which was definitely a reach. But it's a solid player. He had a pretty good year last year. Wasn't outrageously good. 82 points, 59 games, was decent, was solid. He's a guy that I imagine could end up playing in the AHL next year. There's a new rule that's been put in place, the new CBA, that each NHL team will be allowed to have one 19-year-old on their AHL roster. For the Capitals, it would make sense for Parasak to be there. On Prince George, he's played the past 2 seasons. He's been putting up really good numbers. 105 points last year, 82 points this season. So there's not really a ton more for him to gain from that level of hockey. I think he'd benefit a lot from a quality stint in the AHL this coming season, and to really hone in on the all-around aspects of his game beyond the offensive side of the puck. But, prototypical winger with 6 foot size, 180 pounds, just a really solid, steady player who, again, I think a good second, third line guy in the future for the Capitals down the line here. At number 98, Sasha Boisvert, a guy who is rising on my list as of just right now, and I think he could continue to rise as this season progresses. He had a really good World Junior Summer Showcase for Team Canada, put in a really good effort, and really he's going to make it tough. Obviously, they'll have another camp closer to the time of the actual tournament, but he put on a really good performance. He's going to make it hard for the management team to not put him on the roster. 6'3", 190 pounds, plays a really good two-way game. So he's gonna fit. He plays that bottom six role, and a guy who's got a lot of good skill offensively and can play that bottom six role. It's a player that Team Canada typically covets for this team, typically wants to have on the juniors, because they like that two-way style, and it doesn't always work out for them. But if they can get a player who does both the offensive and defensive side of the game well, it'll be beneficial for them, and I think that could be Sasha Boisvert. He was really good on a not very good North Dakota team in the NCAA last year. His first NCAA season, nearly a point per game, was one of the best young players in the league. He transferred over to BU this past year, and I think that's going to be really big for him. Like, a lot of opportunity with a lot of their players on their way out to the NHL. There's a lot of opportunity to make get a high quality spot on that roster. There's a lot of talent there as well to go along with it. So I think he could have a really big season for Boston University, but it was a very promising draft year +1 for Boisvert, and a really good summer so far for him with that summer showcase performance. At number 97, Tristan Luneau, a guy who's been a bit up and down on the bordering of the NHL level player. Like, he's been up and down on the Ducks. He's played a little bit in the AHL, a little bit in the NHL. I think he really got to get a full NHL season under his belt. He ended up playing only 6 games this year. He played 7 the year before. He was really good in his 7 in the 23-24 season. This past stint wasn't as good. Ended up as a -5 and didn't register a point. But went to the AHL and was one of the top defensemen in the entire league with 52 points in 59 games. So really good offensive numbers there. Needs to work on his defensive game still. That's obviously definitely an issue for him. But was fully healthy this year, unlike last season, which really helped his production, really helped his consistency, and I think that's going to be really big for him. And I think having a fully healthy season in the AHL under his belt, then heading and trying to make the Ducks roster out of camp, it's a really good showing for him, and it could be a good season for him coming up here in the 25-26 season. At number 96, Cameron Reed, the draft pick recently out of the 2025 draft class over to Nashville. I really like this pick for Nashville. I think it was a really solid pickup at the value they got him at. He slipped a little bit down the board. They got him at 21st overall, so I think most people had him maybe in that 15 to 20 range. So maybe that was his range, but I think he could have gone a little higher, to be honest. But he's a very good player, very talented left shot defenseman who really is a great offensive mind, who does a lot of really good stuff with the blue line with the puck on his stick, moves the puck well, and doesn't let his defensive game he doesn't hinder his defensive game for offensive stats. He can do both well at the same time, which is really good for these young offensive-minded defensemen. But I like Cameron Reed a lot. The question is, he's a little bit smaller for a defenseman. He's not crazy small, 6 foot, just average height. But a guy who like that could it end up affecting him? I doubt it. I think he'll be fine. He might even continue to grow a little further. I'm not too worried about it. But he had a pretty promising draft year, and we'll see if he can continue to take another step up in Kitchener this next coming season in the OHL. At number 95, Logan Hensler, a guy who I actually thought should have probably gone before Cameron Reed in the draft. He went 2 picks later by Ottawa. Ottawa actually traded back with Nashville. They swapped picks. It was a really, really good piece of business by Steve Staios and the Ottawa team, which was really good. But I like Logan Hensler a lot. 6'3", 198-pound right shot defenseman who plays a great two-way game. That's a pretty textbook defenseman in my book in the NHL. That's pretty much exactly what you're looking for. Size, defense, skill, really, really good all around. The Wisconsin team wasn't good in the NCAA last year with Hensler. He didn't have a crazy good season, but he did get named to the junior team as a 17-year-old, which is very, very impressive for them. So that was a big bonus. Actually, he was 18 at the time because he has a late birthday in October. But as a draft year, in his draft year, got selected to the junior team, which is impressive in its own right, especially for a team as loaded as the States, where they won the gold medal. And Hensler was just steady. He didn't do anything crazy. He wasn't really a super potent part because he wasn't one of the top defensemen on this team. They had a lot of really good defensemen. He played on that bottom pair and played his role really well. Was very steady. Didn't look out of place. Wasn't particularly noticeable, but also wasn't, so not in a good way, but also wasn't noticeable in a bad way, which is almost just as important for a defenseman like him, especially at that age, at that level. So it was really good to see him be able to do it at a high level there and be able to fit in among those talented players. He should be a major piece for the junior team this coming season. Probably one of their top defensemen, if not their top defenseman, behind Cole Hudson. So he'll be a pretty big piece for them this coming season, and he should be, he'll obviously be big for Wisconsin again. And we'll see if maybe Wisconsin can have a better season than they had last year. Maybe help him play more high pressure, play with better talent around him, and maybe that'll improve his numbers and his game overall, being able to play with some higher talent in Wisconsin, hopefully. At number 94, we go back to Nashville with Teddy Stiga, another player who didn't play a master role, but had a really big moment, you could say, for the junior team of the USA with that gold medal winning overtime goal. Teddy Stiga, he didn't have a crazy tournament up until that point, but he was good. He put up some decent points and was very, very, very good. His skating was very noticeable in the tournament. He was very fast, very all over the ice, very quick to the puck, very quick to make plays. I really liked that out of him. And he was also had a really good season at Boston College with 30 points in 36 games there. Headed back to BC for another year, and again, another player who will be a big piece in the top 6 of that United States World Junior roster. So we'll see how he can do there. I'm expecting big things out of him. Probably will be playing with some really good talent. That's what it seemed like with the way with where he was being slotted in during the summer showcase. He had a good summer showcase, nothing too exceptional, but he fit in well. He was where he was expected to be, so he'll likely be a player that comes back for another year at that junior roster and should play a big role, but should be a big season for him as well at BC. Again, a player who had a good opportunity last year, was going to have even better opportunities to succeed in this coming season as another year older. At number 93 is the smooth skating Cullen Potter. Calgary Flames drafted him near the end of the first round. I thought he slipped way too far for being arguably, maybe not even arguably, there's the best skater, actually, the second best skater behind Matthew Schaefer, I'd say, in this draft class. He's such a good skater. Fast on his feet, but also just smooth with his edges and moves really well and is really smart with his skating. He's undersized for sure at 5'10", 172. That's going to be something for him to battle through, but a lot of skill. Doesn't isn't lazy in the defensive end, and again, his speed just kills this. Part of what makes him a decent defender too is because he can catch almost anyone on the ice. So really, really good skater, and he does have good offensive skill, offensive mind as well. Was really good at the U18s with 8 points in 7 games there. Had a good season for Arizona State this past year as a draft year player, which is also impressive there. I think he's got an uphill battle to make the USA team. He wasn't like a standout guy at the Summer Showcase. They have a lot of those high speed, high skill guys, so he might not be able to carve himself out a role this coming season. But in the year following, he should be a lock, I would say. But yeah, he's super skilled. Needs to, again, bulking up would be nice, and maybe add a little more physicality to his game, add a little more extra oomph, extra layers to his offensive and defensive game beyond his speed, and try and find those extra pieces that can work. If his speed isn't there, if he's shut down and they got a guy who can keep up with him, or they got a guy who just can slow him down, what else can he do? That'll be a big thing for him to prove this next year. But I mean, the skating is really what stands out with this kid, and it's going to be if he can develop the rest of his game around it, it's going to be a real talented player. At number 92, Ben Kindle, the Pittsburgh Penguins draft pick. It was an interesting pick. It was really early, in my opinion. I think he was more in that 17 to 20 range, going all the way up at 11. There was a lot of good players on the board. But from everything we've seen and what we saw from him at Penguins development camp, he was really, really skilled, one of the best players on the ice there. And that's no secret. Ben Kindle was one of the most highly skilled players in this draft class. The question marks for him arise from his 5'11", 181 frame. That's going to be where questions arise about him. The skill is undoubtedly amazing. It's just, will it come with him to the NHL level? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. But like I said, the skill with this guy is really unmatched. Really one of the most skilled players in this past draft class. 99 points in 65 games for Calgary. He's a shot to make Canada's junior team. I don't think he will this year again. Similar to Cullen Potter, Canada has a lot of those high skill guys that are a year older and a little more skilled and a little bigger that'll play in the top 6. And Ben Kindle doesn't really fit a bottom 6 role, so he'll likely have to wait another year. But overall, a super uber talented player. Will his size be a hindrance to the next level? That's going to be the big question mark for Ben Kindle, because everything else about his game is amazing. That size is just the one glaring red flag. We'll see if it hinders him. I still disagree with the pick. I still think they could have gone with other guys, but Ben Kindle is an amazing, highly skilled player nonetheless. And if he develops the rest of his game, or if he grows maybe a little bit taller, or is able to be one of those guys who's undersized but still can perform at the NHL level, should be a really talented player to watch. At number 18, right back to Calgary with Cole Reshny, another guy they snagged. Calgary had a really good draft this year in the top end of the draft, similar to how they drafted last year, where they were really good. The difference was last year they were able to find lots of value in the mid-rounds with guys like Henry Muse and Luke Misa. This year they just nailed their 2 first-round picks with Cullen Potter, who I just talked about, and then Cole Reshny, who was an amazing centerman. Also 5'11", again, a lot of these guys, they get blended together in the rankings because they all have very similar styles and very similar weaknesses, very similar strengths. Reshny, again, really good skater, really good puck handler, really good, with the puck on his stick and making plays offensively, whether it's passing the puck or taking a shot. But he also plays a good two-way game. He's a centerman for a reason, and he plays the centerman role as it's designed to be played. He plays good on his defensive end, plays good in the offensive end, really drives the play of his line in the offensive and defensive end, and had a really great year for Victoria. He's headed to North Dakota this next season. The North Dakota team wasn't that great last year, and they lost their best player in Sacha Beauvert. We'll see what else they have in store for this coming season with Reshny. But just going to the NCAA for that higher level of talent, that higher level of competition, will be big for Reshny. I think it'll be good for his development, and I think it's the right choice after a really productive draft year in Victoria. Another guy who I think will have to wait a year to make the Canadian World Junior roster, but again, should be a really good centerman for years to come in the NHL if his size isn't a hindrance for him. At number 90, and the trend continues with another undersized forward in Braden Coots. The difference with Braden Coots is he's not the same style of player as the past 3 guys, really. He's not a uber high-skilled, highly talented player. He is highly talented, he does have a lot of skill, but he is just a grinder. This kid goes and gets it. He is taller than these guys at 6 foot, but he's still only 185 pounds, similar frame to the other 3 I just mentioned. But he's not he's not as big as you would expect him to be for the style of game he plays. Guys who typically play this style are normally a lot bigger, not Braden Cooch. This guy just goes. One of the best forecheckers I've ever watched. Just never lets go on a play, never gives up on a play, never gives up on a forecheck. The puck's in the offensive end. He's going to go get it no matter who has it, and he normally is going to win that puck battle. He's so physical and so relentless on the puck, in the corners, in front of the net, anywhere. And he makes plays because of it. He gets in the dirty areas, whether it's in front of the net, behind the net, in the corners, makes plays for himself and for his teammates. Just a real workhorse guy you love to have on your team. And I think a lot of people around the community, the draft community, leading into the draft, were saying if there's a guy in this draft class who they could see wearing a C for their respective team down the line, beyond Matthew Schaefer, Braden Cooch might be the next guy in terms of leadership ability. He's such a great leader off the ice, and he backs it up on the ice with the hard workhorse style he plays all over the ice. You know, he was the captain of Seattle last year, captained their U18, the Canadian U18 team. Going to go back to Seattle this coming year, remain their captain there. Will likely we'll miss the World Junior cuts, and then we'll be back the following year and could wear an A on his jersey at that point. But I mean, they were really good U18s. We used his workhorse style well. We registered 12 points in 7 games, was point per game in the WHL. Again, the point production did value at U18s, but that's not really what you're looking for in Braden Cooch. You're not hoping for these enormous, egregiously high point totals. Is the other things he does well on the ice beyond the score sheet. The skate, the hard working, the physicality, the grinding it out, the relentlessness, and the leadership are the things that you're really getting in Braden Cooch that are going to make him almost a surefire NHLer. Is no matter how high is his ceiling. So I think as a fourth liner, this guy's your ideal fourth liner. He's got the skill to be a good third liner or maybe even a good second liner workhorse type player. So we'll see how high he can push that ceiling. But the intangibles are especially there with a guy like him. At number 89, Hunter Brzustewicz of the Calgary Flames. The older of the two Brzustewicz brothers, he was sent over to Calgary from Vancouver in the Elias Lindholm deal, and they play very similar styles. The difference was Hunter Brzustewicz came on a little later. He was a third-round draft pick as opposed to being a first-round draft pick, and that was a big, that's really the big difference between the two of them. They play very similar offense-first style games, play decent defense as well, but really, again, at the end of the day, they're offensively minded defensemen. Right shot as well, which is always a favorable thing to have in your defenseman. He had 32 points in 70 games this past year in Calgary in the AHL, so nothing amazing on the offensive side of things for his first ever pro season. I would hope he can maybe make the NHL roster. It's going to be tough with Rasmus Andersson still there, and that's sort of what Flames fans have been talking about from what I've seen, is that, they've got abundance of right shot defensemen. They've got, Weegar plays the right sometimes. They obviously have Zane Parekh will be up next year, and they have Rasmus Andersson. They have guys like Kevin Ball and all those other players in their D-corps. It's pretty crowded, but Hunter Brzustewicz deserves a shot from what they saw. He only played one NHL game, but he was good in that game at the end of the year. But you're hoping to trade Rasmus Andersson to make room for Brzustewicz to try and at least give him the opportunity, but because right now there really is no opportunity for him to make that roster because the slots seem already given out. But I don't think another year in the AHL would really hurt him. I think it's honestly might be a good thing for him, try and really up that production offensively, because again, that is his game. You want to see that high-end offensive production, so give him another year in the AHL, see what he can do. If the spot opens up, if you trade Anderson mid-season, then give him the call-up and see what he can do. But, really good offensively minded defenseman here in Hunter Brzustewicz. At number 88, Sasha Boumedienne of the Winnipeg Jets, a guy I loved, I think slipped way too far in the draft. Near the end of the first round, just another really, really good skater, really smooth with his movements, really good skating, and it makes his offensive game so good, and he's got really good size too at 6'2", 190 pounds, so really good size, and skates well, moves the puck well, and blends those two parts of his game really, really well together on the offensive side of the puck, and it really helps him produce so well. I mean, this guy broke the defenseman record for points scored at the U18s with 14 points in 7 games, beating Cole Hudson's record, who, slipped down the draft, and, he slipped for size reasons. Boumedienne doesn't even have the size concerns. There's no red flags there size-wise. He is just a really good stud of a defenseman. I think he should be on the Swedish junior team this coming season, going back to BU for another year. We'll see if he can carve out an even bigger role with guys like Willander on their way out. and maybe he'll be able to play some more high pressure, high situation minutes, because he didn't really have that in this past year, being that, Willander and Cole Hudson were taking a lot of the really good offensive minutes, the offensive zone faceoffs, the power play units, they quarterback those two. So there wasn't a lot of time for Boumediene to showcase his offensive skill. He showcased his defensive skill really well, and he got to the U18s, got an opportunity as the number one defenseman, as the offensive mind, as the offensive go-to guy in the back end, and really ran away with that and didn't make them regret that choice at all. He was really amazing in the offensive end, and I think this coming season at BU, he'll get another opportunity with more offensive pressure, with more on his plate to really showcase his skill this next season. I think he's going to wow some people this coming year. At number 87, maybe almost a complete opposite defenseman type in Stian Solberg. Just a freight train is really the best way to describe Stian Solberg. I ended up going at the end of the first round to Anaheim, and he just is an absolute wrecking ball. He's only 6'2". He's not a massive defenseman, but he's 205 pounds, so he's got some good size on him, and just lays people out. There's no question about what his game is. He's going to be a bottom pair enforcer defenseman, but he's going to be one hell of an enforcer defenseman, just running people over, and isn't going to make... He's going to run people over, but he's not going to do it and make a mistake. He's not going to go out for a hit, and then because he goes out for that hit, he loses his man behind him, and he misses an assignment, and ends up being a break on-man rush the other way. He still is a very steady defenseman, regardless of how big he hits. He just hits when he hits at the right time. He waits for the right time to make his hits, and when he does, he doesn't miss, and he lays out whoever his target is. He's not going to wow you with the point production. He had only 12 points in 47 SHL games this year. But draft year +1, playing a full SHL season and fitting in well. Went to the AHL, fit in well there. Going to stay in the AHL this coming season. Played for Norway, the World Championships. He had 6 points in 7 games there. And again, that's not his game. And still being able to do that at the World Championships against a bunch of NHLers is super impressive. And again, the physicality is really what stands out with this guy. So if he can put together some offensive skill, even if it's just a little bit, then that's just an added bonus on top of the great defensive game you're getting out of a guy like Solberg. At 86, we have David Edstrom of the Nashville Predators on the Nashville prospect making it onto this list. Edstrom is just kind of your textbook third-line shutdown centerman. That's really all there is to David Edstrom. It made sense. He was drafted by Vegas. He had a whirlwind trade deadline to summer last year. Went to San Jose as a part of the Thomas Hertl deal from Vegas, and then got traded to Nashville as a part of the Yaroslav Askarov deal there. But I think really what Nashville's getting here is a great third-line, fourth-line centerman who's going to win you draws, going to play good on the PK, and put up decent offensive numbers when you need him. But he's got good size, really good in front of that. That's the role he played for Sweden at the World Juniors. He was their face-off man whenever they needed a face-off win, whenever they needed a defensive zone win, offensive zone win. Edstrom was their guy, and he just, on the power play, won the face-off out to the front of the net and plopped himself right there with his 6'3" frame, and just was a nuisance in front of the net. So really just, he's not a crazy amount of skill. It's going to really pop on the score sheet or pop on the highlight tapes, but he plays the fundamentals well and does what you want him to do. That's what you need him to do. You need players to do that, to have a well-rounded roster, and Edstrom's that guy, Just your textbook two-way face-off specialist centerman who's going to get in the dirty areas and going to play good defense. So not much more there on David Edstrom. It's a really straightforward analysis, and I think he's going to be a real solid bottom sixer. At number 85, Mikhail Gulyayev of the Colorado Avalanche. A piece that I'm honestly a little surprised the Avs haven't traded with how much they just move prospects like crazy. They moved Cal Ritchie, but I guess Cal Ritchie's obviously a more highly touted prospect than Gulyayev. But Gulyayev hasn't exactly had an ideal development path so far. Still only 5'11". He's not going to grow much further than that, and that's going to be a concern is that size. But he's just a really smooth skater, though. That was his big... his big green flag, the big scouting thing about him in the 2023 draft was just how well he skated. And he was one of the best skaters in that draft class. So Colorado's got a good player there. And he's been decent in the KHL. He hasn't been overly, exciting, overly highly productive. But just has been steady, back-to-back full KHL seasons, 12 and 15 points apiece, was in the plus side of the plus-minus both times. Just a relatively mundane development path so far in the KHL. Hasn't really wowed you. Hasn't really taken a major step to make you think he can be a really high-end top 4 guy. But Colorado's done a really good job at taking really good skating defensemen and blending them into what they want them to be. So I would imagine he might take a steeper development path once he gets to Colorado, but he's staying in the KHL for one more season this next year. We'll see if he makes the transition after that, but just a decent, maybe bottom pair guy, but I think Colorado's system could help him grow even further and use that skating to his advantage at the next level. At number 85 is a massive riser on this list, a guy who wasn't even on this list last year. That's Ilya Protas, who just had an amazing breakout season in Windsor this past year. The Washington Capitals are a real stud here. He had 51 points in 61 games of the USHL in his draft year and was taken in the third round by Washington. Then he goes to the OHL. His first OHL season has 124 points in 61 games and at plus 58. Goes to the playoffs and has 25 points in 12 playoff games. Unbelievable numbers. Again, another guy who would be in contention with Washington to be that 19-year-old that plays in the Hershey Bears. Just like Tarek Parasak I mentioned earlier. Protas could be that guy too. But then the added bonus with Protas is similar to his brother Alexei, who's been a stud for the Capitals. 6'5", 201 pounds. So he's 6'5", with a good build, who could put up 120 points in a season. In the OHL, yes, but 2 points per game, regardless of league, is impressive enough, especially when you're doing it at that size. This is just an amazing breakout season for Protas, and another season like that, and he'll rise even further on this list as long as he proves this is an outlier season. But the track record with his brother, who's a very similar development story, it shows that there's a lot of potential here for Protas moving forward. At number 83, another big rise. This another guy who wasn't on the list last year, who ended up flying up out of the top here because of a great breakout season. It's Nick Lardis. Very, very, very similar to Ilya Protas. Not in terms of the builds, but in terms of just what happened. 2023 third-round pick. He's a year older, but then in his second OHL season, puts up 71 goals. There are so few players in CHL history that have put up 71 goals. He also had 46 assists, but 71 goals in 65 games. That is elite stuff. We'll see if he can take that goal-scoring touch over the AHL and for Rockford this coming season, or was he... There is some talk that maybe he was more of a product of Jake O'Brien's playmaking this past year, which, I'm sure helped his total, but you don't get 71 goals off of a pure fluke. I think he's an extremely skilled player. I mean, again, similar to Lardis, or to Protas, you take a look, okay, well, did he continue into the playoffs? 11 goals in 7 games. So yes. So there's a lot to like with Lardis. He's only 5'11", but if he plays he can be a really good, just pure sniper role, play on the power play as a PP specialist, and see what he can do there. But I think we'll see what he can do in Rockford at a higher level of skill, higher level of defense, higher level of goaltending, and see if he can still pot some high numbers. And maybe the Chicago Blackhawks are another great offensive piece in their hand to pair with Bedard. At 82, Noah Ostlund, a guy who's just been kind of mulling around this area since he got drafted. Hasn't really done anything amazing, hasn't really done anything crazy. But he's just a decent player. Again, I think he'd be a good third, fourth line type beat player as a centerman. Had a pretty good first AHL season with 36 points in 45 games, with a plus 20 as well. Ended up getting 8 NHL games and wasn't as good there. Failed to register a point, -6 as well. But I just don't think he's ready for that. Another year in the AHL, maybe near the end of the season, he can get the call up to Buffalo and see if he can do something there. I don't think Buffalo really needs him either. But just a decent bottom 6 player in the future, I would say. We'll see if he can stick down the middle at his 5'11" frame. He's also only 174 pounds, so not exactly really filling out that frame. So we'll see if maybe he moves to the wing full time, and that could change things for him and maybe make him into a different different style, maybe not force him into the bottom 6 centerman archetype. We'll see if that maybe is a change they decide to make with Ostlund, but he's just a decent piece right now for the Sabres. At number 81, it's Philip Biested, a player who was very similar to not Noah Ostlund, very similar to David Edstrom, who the Sharks had and then traded away, and Biested is a Sharks prospect, and I think this is why it was such a good deal to move David Edstrom to Nashville is you then have Philip Beested, who is almost a very identical player, and you also draft Cole McKinney, who plays a very similar role as well. But yeah, just a really steady, solid two-way player. Nothing to wow you about. That's what happens to a lot of this. That's sort of the trend of this 25 players is they're either really highly skilled with one major red flag, which typically is size, or they're just some good low event, good two-way players like the Beasteds, the Edstroms, the Stian Solbergs of this range. But yeah, like with Philip Beasted, you're getting 6'2" size, 185-pound frame, plays a good two-way game, shoots well, passes the puck well, does everything just well. 31 points in 50 games at the AHL level this past year. Has been playing the SHL this past few seasons and has been pretty good for them as well. You're in that league as well. So, just an overall low event, good bottom sixer in the future for the San Jose Sharks. At number 80, Joakim Kemell, a player who was all over the board in his draft year and has been all over the board since being drafted too. I mean, I was really high on Kemell in his draft year as a really high-skilled shooter, just a really highly talented shooter of the puck, basically. He whips it really, really well. But it's just been kind of up and down. He had a rough draft year +1 with only 15 points in 43 league games. But then we went over to Milwaukee and had 13 points in 14 games there. Was decent in the World Juniors as well. And since then has been pretty steady in the AHL with back-to-back 40-point campaigns with Milwaukee. But again, hasn't taken a big step. I was hoping for a bit of a bigger step this year to get to like point per game level, really putting some really good offensive production. Showing his offensive skill, because this guy isn't a defensive mastermind. He's an offensively skilled guy who makes the most of his offensive opportunities, and that's what his game is. We'll see if he can take that next leap, take that offensive jump in this next season, but I'd like to see that, and maybe then he can make a case for the NHL roster the following year. At number 79, Trevor Connolly. He's another guy who ended up making the World Junior team for the States and was really solid for them. And I would think they'll be having him back next year. I didn't hear raving reviews about him at the summer showcase, but he was really good in my opinion at the juniors just when he played. Really good skate. He skated really well. He fit in really well. He had 4 points in 7 games and really just moved well. Just really was. That is really what I noticed. Is he was just a really good smooth skater, and he fits that type. He's 6'1" and only 165 pounds, but yeah, his skating, his offensive skills are what show him, what put him above the other players. Is he's got really good hands, he's got a good shot, and yeah, just really, really good skating. I'm definitely questioning their decision to sign him to his ELC this past offseason. I think he really could have used another year in the NCAA because he really wasn't great. He only had 13 points in 23 games. It was a -13. Again, granted, Providence College isn't exactly a highly touted university for their hockey, but I really do think he should have and could have used another year in the NCAA before making the jump to the AHL, because he's not going to play in the NHL next year. He'll be in the AHL. But yeah, I really do think that they should have give him another year in the NCAA to really help develop the rest of his game beyond the offensive side of things. But really the big thing is, he needs to develop his game beyond the offensive game, and he needs to bulk up. He needs to add some size to that frame to help the transition, because he's 6'1". He's got prototypical height, but he's very, very slim and slender, and we'll see if he can maybe bulk up a little bit on an AHL program. At number 78, Jordan Dumais, a guy who has had a very up and down development course, a player who slipped into the third round of the draft due to size concerns. At 5'9", it's very apparent, but he's 174 pounds, so he's 4 inches shorter than Trevor Connolly and is almost the same weight. But yeah, he slipped to the third round after a really productive season, and he's just had a ton of really productive seasons for the Halifax Mooseheads. 109 points, 140 points the year following. He only had 47 points in 21 games his last year in Halifax, and had 11 points in 21 games with Cleveland this past year. He's had some injuries that have piled up. He had I think it was a DUI, some issues with the law over in Halifax as well that took him out of the lineup for a while there. So it's been really rocky, and yeah, not the production you're hoping for, and the injuries haven't helped, and all the time out of the lineup over the past 2 years has really not helped his development. Hopefully a fully healthy, fully on the ice season for him in the AHL can be a good thing for him, and disprove the doubt about his size, because again, at 5'9", that is a very glaringly concerning height. But the offensive production he's put up cannot be ignored, and if he can get past the barrier that his height presents, should have a really talented player in Jordan Dumais. At number 77 is Kasper Halttunen. Just lethal shot is all you almost need to know about Kasper Halttunen. There's not much more to his game. He's big, he's physical at 6'4", 205. He plays a solid physical game, and he gets on the puck well. But really, his game is just shoot the puck hard and shoot the puck in the net. Like, watching London in the playoffs, this guy had 15 goals in 17 games. Watching them, especially on the power play, was really where you noticed it. And Finland tried doing the same thing too, but it didn't work quite as well from the juniors. He wasn't really able to put some off the pucks in the back of the net at the level you would expect at that tournament. But for London in the OHL playoffs, in the Memorial Cup, their whole setup on the power play was the 4 guys on one side of the ice cycling the puck around, and Kasper Halttunen in his little circle over here waiting for a one-timer, and they moved and they moved and they moved lane, and they fired the pass across a one-timer, and it was just a rocket every time. Either it went in, or it was saved and the rebound, and then they cycled it all over again. They recycled, and they cycle around on the right side of the ice, move the puck, do whatever they need to do, try and find a lane, and boom, feed a pass over to Halttunen, and he fires it. That was their entire plan. Every now and then Halttunen fires it back to the bumper for Oliver Bonk, and Bumper Bonk, that was his nickname, and he hammers one in. But really, it's just a pure shooter. And I think for San Jose, that has all these different archetypes blending around, all these great young players. Halttunen's got a real good chance to fit in as a great third liner. If he can really add some defensive ability to his game and add some physicality, because he has the build to do it. If he can add that layer to his game, he's going to fit in really well at the NHL level as a good power play specialist who can play a bottom 6 role as well. And at his size, it shouldn't be a big issue for him. That's what I want to see from Halttunen, because I think this shot is NHL level. We'll see if he can get the rest of his game figured out, because it's not going to be as easy to get those shots at the NHL level if you don't have the other pieces to your game to help balance it out and help make you more of a threat everywhere on the ice besides just the face-off dot. And finally, at number 76, it is Gavin Brindley, who was traded from the Blue Jackets to the Colorado Avalanche in a wacky deal that I think Colorado really came away with a good fleece in. Brindley, another player, 5'9", so for Columbus, maybe not the best strategy to have Brindley and Dumais in your prospect pool, but they're both talented players, and I think with Brindley, it wasn't the best season for him after a really productive season his last year at Michigan with 53 points in 40 games and then a 10-point World Junior performance and making the World Championship roster for the States. It was a bit of an underwhelming draft year, +2 with Cleveland with only 17 points in 52 games and a -10. So hopefully a change of scenery heading to Colorado, this AHL team in Colorado, will help him out and maybe help him improve the other parts of his game and help him take that next step, because the pro game was a very clear big adjustment for Brindley that he, it's going to be tough to make, and it's tough to make in general. It's even tougher to make at that size, so we'll see if he can adjust and accordingly and improve his game as needed with Colorado, but a really talented player if he can get past the size concerns. As many of the players on this list are, as you definitely noticed, as I pointed out, that's the players you're getting on this area. It was undersized, highly skilled guys. It was very steady, low event, two-way forwards, two-way defensemen. So that's really the trend of this. The 100 to 76 range, but that'll do it for this part. That is the last player on this part. Only 3 parts to go with the top 75 prospects coming up. And then, if I can get back on consistency and, try and keep this flowing more consistently, I will try and do my prospect rankings, and maybe I'll get those out in time. My prospect pool rankings, maybe I'll get those out in time, and I can then do some more stuff with maybe predicting the NHL season and awards and that sort of stuff. But we'll have to wait and see if I can, get going on that, and that's just me needing to get moving. But yeah, this one will be out soon, and then, try and get these next 3 parts out as quickly as I can. But thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to see more, and I will see you in the next one.